Do you guys remember that really badass and ultra powerful character from the Force Unleashed games and how incredible those cinematics that showcased his powers were? Well, I do, and he was one of my favorite Star Wars characters to ever grace the canon timeline as a kid. For obvious reasons, he was retconned and shafted into the abyss now known as Star Wars Legends. I've always wondered as a kid back in the day why Galen Merrick never returned to Star Wars in any media after The Force Unleashed 2, and why he hasn't been introduced into canon, or at least a tweaked version of the character. So let's enter the world between worlds and enter another universe of the Star Wars timeline, an Elseworlds, on how Starkiller can be part of the current Star Wars canon. Now, I did think about Starkiller being some sort of secret inquisitor for Vader, but for that to work, he would have to be completely nerfed down, and I think that would be lame since we won't be getting Starkiller in his full potential like he was in the video games. So here's option 1. Now, this is something that I think could work really well. What if one of the many students in Luke's new Jedi Order was Galen Merrick? This is how I would play the scenario out. So sometime after Return of the Jedi, Luke travels the galaxy to recruit Force sensitives to train as Jedi. He encounters Galen Merrick, who would be hiding out on Kashyyyk alone with a Wookiee, since his father would have been killed by Darth Vader, just like he did in the first game.
A son.
Run!
Years later, Kylo would sack the temple like we saw in The Last Jedi in that flashback, and converts Galen to the dark side, becoming a Knight of Ren. Now, this version of Galen wouldn't have unlocked his full potential just yet, which is why in this version, Snoke would favor Kylo as his apprentice rather than Galen. There's elements in the sequel trilogy that I really like, mostly The Force Awakens and the mystery surrounding Rey's parents. Now, this version would be slightly different than option 1, but similar. Imagine that Galen is a student at Luke's Jedi Temple between the time gap after Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. This canon version of Galen would be similar to Anakin in a way. He would be conflicted but never turns to the dark side. He would have a daughter which happens to be Rey and could explain why Rey is so powerful in the Force without needing a lot of training. By the time Kylo sacks Luke's Jedi Temple and murders the students, Galen would then hide Rey far away from Kylo on Jakku. He pays Unkar Plot handsomely to keep his mouth shut and to watch over Rey. He would then go into hiding somewhere in the unknown regions until the time is right to return. This version would be very unlikely for obvious reasons, but I still think it's a pretty cool one. Seeing as Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars character, I really tried thinking of a nice way to tie her in with Starkiller if he were to become canon again. This version would show us that sometime after the Battle of Endor, Ahsoka would find a young Galen Merrick who had been hiding out with his father all throughout the Galactic Civil War in the Outer Rim. Until his death, of course. Ahsoka would then take him in and train him to be a great Jedi like herself, and possibly join her and Sabine on the journey to finding Ezra perhaps? I think this would be a nice twist having Ahsoka being his master in canon, while Darth Vader was his master in Legends. This version of Galen Merrick would be the son of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. After Kylo killed Mara, Luke vanished and Galen exiled himself into depression, living alone on an Outer Rim planet, not just because of his mother's death, but also because Kylo killed his love interest, which would be Juno, and he can't get over the fact that he couldn't save the woman he cared for so much, and his own mom. This version of Galen would be Galen Skywalker, and trained by both Luke and Mara Jade. Now, out of all these versions, this one is my favorite, and probably the most likely one out of the 5, so check this out. Let's say Disney announces a new Star Wars trilogy called the Legacy Trilogy. It would be set 32 to 35 years after the events of The Force Awakens. This version of Galen Merrick would also be a Skywalker. He'd be the son of Rey. Rey would theoretically be 54 years old during this time period, but we wouldn't see her, at least in the first film. It would be more of an open mystery, and the explanation to why he's so powerful in the Force like he is in the games is not only because he has the Skywalker blood, but also because he's the son of Rey. Since Rey is already powerful in the Force, I feel like Galen's powers would be amplified 10 times stronger in this timeline, especially since this version would have went through intensive training through the years. In this timeline, all life in the known galaxy would have been wiped out by a mysterious alien race, leaving Galen to be the only living thing in it, along with his trusty droid, R2-D2. The first film would see him travel to another galaxy with completely new factions. His goal in the first film will be to investigate and track down this mysterious alien race that plans to wipe out the following galaxies they encounter, and also investigate the disappearance of his mother, who he hasn't seen in 10 years. Throughout the trilogy, he would meet his cousin or brother, who would be a version of Cade Skywalker from the comics. One of the main villains would be the New Sith Order, which would be led by Darth Krayt. Now you're probably wondering that Starkiller is way too OP, which is true. And to balance that out, I feel like he should go up against Abeloth or another powerful Force user in this trilogy. I honestly really like this idea a lot and will probably incorporate it in a future What If video. Leave your comments down below and tell me what you guys think. How would you introduce Galen, Merrick, aka Starkiller, into canon? I really want to read your feedback, and if you enjoyed this video, drop a like. You may follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you guys next time on Star Wars Elseworlds. And remember, may the Force be with you.